Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. We'll go ahead and get started in just a moment here. Just to do some quick introductions, my name is Katie. I am the Customer Success Manager here at CheckpointEHR. For those of you who are not maybe familiar with Checkpoint, we are a highly intuitive and efficient behavioral health electronic record. We also have Ansley Campbell. She is an LMFT and co-founder of Known Collective. So she's going to be doing our presentation today. Yeah, so we'll go ahead, we'll get started. Oh, you probably also see Barrett. Barrett's on here. He is our head of marketing. Yeah, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we go ahead and get started. Everyone is muted, but your cameras are enabled. So if you want to pop those on, say, hey, we love to see your faces. But if not, if you're camera shy, that's okay too. There will be a Q&A after the presentation. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in that Q&A. That should be located at the top of your screen. We may also ask you to post some stuff in the chat during the presentation for some interactions. So the chat is there as well. There will be a recording that's available once the webinar ends. I believe everyone will get that emailed to them, but we'll also post it on our site and LinkedIn and stuff like that as well. Okay. All right. So without further ado, again, we have Ansley here. She's going to be talking to you guys about AI ethics and innovations for therapists in 2025. So yeah, Ansley, you want to go ahead and take it away?
Yeah. Okay. Let me get it up and sharing. Some full screen action. Okay. We looking good?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. So like she said, I am Ansley Campbell. I recently did this CEU actually just last week on the ethical use of AI in therapy. And Barrett so very kindly asked me to pair with Checkpoint to do a webinar for y'all today. So this is about half of what I usually do in this presentation. So hopefully it will still provide lots of info for y'all today. So a little bit about my background. I have been working for the last decade in substance abuse treatment. So addiction treatment has really been my passion. I've been a therapist, I've been a clinical director. And if you're wondering like why and how can I tell you anything about AI, it is because over the past year, my co-founder and I, who's also the co-founder of the Known Collective with me, she and I decided that we were going to create an AI note companion. We wanted to create a documentation assistant specifically for people in substance abuse treatment because we saw the extensive documentation, paperwork, arduousness of it all, and got really interested in AI and how it could really help out the field of therapy. So we spent about a year doing that. And ultimately, for various reasons, we didn't take our prototype to market, all of that. We've since switched gears. But at the end of last year, I participated in a 9-week seminar with Practice, which is an accelerator for startups, new companies. And so I got to get in there with a lot of other C-suites who are doing some really amazing stuff. All across the US and really actually the world with AI. And we talked a lot about redemptive AI. And for them and for us, that really meant how do we use AI safely, ethically, and in ways that really promotes minimizing harm for the people that are using it and for the people that are creating products with it. So at the end of that, I ended up creating this continuing education event because I thought 2 years ago, I, as a clinician, knew essentially nothing about AI. And so if I've spent all these years learning all of this information, then why not share it? And so that's where this was created from, because I hope that when you leave today, you'll feel a little bit more informed, maybe have questioned some of maybe the biases or concerns that you have. Maybe some of those are going to feel validated today too, and that you just feel like you know how to move forward.
Ansley, it looks like you went muted for a second.
Okay, now I'm unmuted.
Yeah, great.
There you go.
That was weird. I mean, I'm talking about AI and I'm like, how do I unmute myself? Okay, I love it. So understanding what AI is, understanding how AI is being used in therapy currently, the positive, potentially harmful impacts of AI on therapists and clients, identifying various resources, learning how to diagnose, write treatment plans, progress notes, learning how to keep patient health information confidential, learning how to update consents, understanding potential risk or negative impacts of AI, and learning what ethical guidelines are associated with that use. Okay. So just first off, what is AI? Stands for artificial intelligence, and it refers to computer systems that are capable of performing complex tasks that historically only humans could do, such as reasoning, making decisions, or solving problems. And then we have generative AI, which ChatGPT just really blew out into the world for everybody's use. Gen AI is artificial intelligence that can create original content. So it can create text, images, video, audio, software, code. It can create a lot of original content, which is what like a ChatGPT can do. So before we move forward, what I would love to just hear, and you can put it in the chat, what are your current feelings about AI? Do you feel scared, excited, hopeful, nervous, ambivalent? And you're like, I don't know. I'm just learning what it is. I don't care. Let me see if I can open the chat and see. Excited and cautious. What are some other feelings? Give it another sec. Thanks for sharing, Danielle. Any other people feeling cautious, nervous, just maybe even just unsure? Okay. Well, just think about that as we're going through this, knowing that everybody is coming in having lots of different feelings across the board. And we're going to talk about just kind of how Americans feel about AI, some confusion, a little bit of both. Yeah, I've talked to a lot of therapists over the last couple of years about their feelings about AI and know it's pretty, a wide variety across the board based on if you're using it, how you're using it, and just what you're reading, what you're hearing about it. Okay, so let's talk about how Americans feel about AI. So there was a 2023 Pew Research Center survey that found that at least 90% of US adults have heard at least a little bit about AI. So I feel like it's definitely gotten more in our face the last couple of years. So most people are at least hearing a little bit about it. A third of people said that they have heard a lot about it, but only 30% could correctly identify all 6 examples of AI that they use in their everyday life. And then there was a more recent study completed in 2024, a YouGov poll with over 1,000 participants, and 54% of those people said that they felt cautious about AI. 49% felt concerned, 40% felt skeptical, 29% had a mix of apprehension and interest in AI. And here's the chart. Also, 19% felt excited and hopeful, 10% a lot of those indifferent people were like, they're indifferent, also overwhelmed. So you just see like a wide range, but overwhelmingly feeling cautious and concerned and skeptical. So if you're also feeling that way, just feel validated in those feelings for a moment. So some other responses, they had specific concerns around AI's role in protecting information, personal information. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest concerns that I've heard from therapists when they're looking into using a product, curious about using a product, or already using a product, of where's that personal information being held, where's it going, how's it being protected. 41% of people believe that it does more harm than good. 68% of people feel like the businesses and government should be sharing responsibility for managing AI-related information. I also agree with that. 56% of Americans view AI as having a neutral impact. 31% believe it does more harm than good. 93% believe that it is at least moderately important for governments to regulate AI. I absolutely believe it's important for our governments to regulate AI. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. And something that I found interesting which we'll talk about on the next slide, is that 99% of people had used an AI-enabled product within the past week and nearly 2/3 of them had no idea that they had even used it. So AI is much more present in our society and in you using it than you probably even realized. I know that was true for me. Okay, so some ways that you're using it, probably without realizing it. My mind was blown because I, like probably a lot of you, have no idea how most things work. I just use them and I'm glad that they work in my favor. So email providers using AI to filter spam, phishing, junk mail, smart reply, and auto completion, virtual assistants. This is maybe the only one I don't use on a regular basis, but I can't say ALEXA because there's one sitting next to me, out loud. Photo organization. Thank God this exists for the thousands of photos that I take. Autocorrect and predictive text, streaming recommendations. This is what you should watch next. Spotify, Apple Music. This is what you should listen to next. The dreaded social media algorithm. E-commerce personalization. Amazon is trying to get you to add 5 more things to your cart. Navigation and traffic apps, which I'm very grateful for living in Atlanta. Although my parents complain that Google Maps will give them 5 different ways to get to my house every single time based on traffic. Ride sharing, so matching drivers, riders, predicting demand, online banking and fraud protection, customer service chatbots, fitness trackers, and mental health apps, which we're going to spend some more time talking about. So just think about, did you know that you were using probably a majority of, if not all of those things on a daily, weekly, whatever basis and not knowing that AI was helping you use it? Probably so. So how is AI being used in therapy right now? It is being used in so many ways, in so many more ways than I initially realized. There is lots and lots, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into the therapy space in relation to AI because investors and creators really see potential benefit across the board in AI being integrated into the therapy space. And we're going to talk about a lot of those ways. So just so if you haven't heard of these, they're growing, they're coming, they're here. So chatbots and virtual therapists, we're going to dive deeper into that. We're also going to dive deeper into the AI-assisted documentation assistance. There's also personalized mental health intervention. So AI is able to analyze large volumes of data from various sources, social media posts, health apps, wearables, and that can detect changes in mood, behavior, sleep patterns. There's AI-assisted diagnosis and screening. AI can be used for mental health disorders by analyzing text, voice, even facial expressions, which seems wild. They can analyze speech patterns that can indicate depression or anxiety or even subtle signs of a mental health decline. There's predictive analytics for crisis management. AI is used to predict potential mental health crises such as SI, severe depressive episodes. There's therapy augmentation for clinicians, where tools are able to assist therapists by analyzing your session transcripts or patient data to generate insights or treatment recommendations, therapeutic techniques. There's also virtual reality in AI for exposure therapy. So if you're a type of therapist working with that, this is still so wild to me that this is a thing, but VR, I think, will always be wild to me. If you're treating phobias, PTSD, anxiety disorders, and AI-powered mental health apps, as well as data-driven research. So AI is able to advance research because it is able to analyze those large-scale data sets. That would take so much more time for a human to do. Okay, so another interactive, unless everybody just turned this on and left. So in the chat, how are you using AI in therapy right now, if you're using it at all? And even if you're not using it, whether you're using it, how often would you say you're using it? Are you never using it, rarely, sometimes daily, or even more than once per day? We have it rarely. Anybody else using it? Often, not often at all. Yeah, multiple times daily. Okay, so that's probably even from the small sample size going to represent some people. Like I'm sure some people are using it often, and I'm sure some people are not using it often at all. And that's why you're here to figure out if you even want to use it at all or how you can incorporate it. Okay, so why even learn about AI at all? I love this quote. So a lot of people get resistant, which I think is very true around AI, and a lot of technological advances anyways. But this is something we can't control. It is happening whether we want it to or not. Jessica Jackson said, if we're thoughtful and strategic about how we integrate AI, we can have a real impact on lives around the world. And so that is something that I hope you take from this, that if you are going to incorporate AI, that you are thoughtful and that you are strategic about how you're using it. So you make sure that you're using it ethically and intentionally. Okay, so let's talk about some AI therapists slash chatbots. I prefer to call them chatbots. I think it's really important when referring to artificial intelligence that we aren't humanizing something that is not human. And as a therapist myself, I don't think that a chatbot is also a therapist. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here are some options. So if you maybe have clients who are looking into this, maybe they're already using some, maybe you want to use it to supplement your own therapy. We have Wobot, which a lot of these will really just say they target mild to moderate mental health challenges. So they are not saying that they're here for the crisis or here for the severe or persistent mental health issues. They want to stay in that mild to moderate range, but we also know that people are going to break through those boundaries. They already are, and they're going to go for them for some more significant stuff, but that is what they are targeted towards. There is WISA, which has a HIPAA BAA, Business Associate Agreement, and I would encourage that if you're going to use one or have your clients use one, or if they are using one, then encouraging that it has a HIPAA BAA, because we want that information protected, because a lot of these, otherwise you don't know where this information is going, how it's being kept. So WISA also has an option to talk to a human therapist for additional support, which some of these do. There's Replica, which also says that it's like a virtual companion, a friend. People have used it as a romantic partner as well, so has a lot of roles. Also a note at the bottom that it's extremely unlikely that bots are going to replace us because bots are not made to handle a crisis, and they're also just not made to handle a lot of what it is that we deal with on a daily basis. But for those mild to moderate mental health challenges, they potentially could be enough for some people or great supplements. Maybe a lot of them say, hey, use us in addition to seeing a therapist. And that could be a great fit for somebody. There's also Tess, there's Ginger, there's Ellie.ai, and a big thing about these is that they are saying we are 24/7 support. So there are no boundaries around this relationship. You can text them at any time, you can contact them at any time. And on the one hand, I see that as an issue because people are getting their needs met all the time in a relationship, where in human to human relationships, you don't get your needs met all the time. You don't get them met in the time that you want them to, and you have to deal with that disappointment or rejection or abandonment or vulnerability. And that's just not something that people have to do with a chatbot, which is why they're so popular. Millions of people are using them. So if you think, oh gosh, nobody's really using these, millions of people are using these right now in America alone. And so lots and lots of people are using them. Um, and also at the same time, you may just want to have a client who is texting their chatbot at 3 a.m. and not texting you at 3 a.m. because you're not going to respond anyways, and they get that support because it's more equitable, accessible support. And so those are real things too. Other popular apps are MindDoc, Uber, and Serenity. Okay, so I did a TherapyBot demo because I was curious, and I'm not going to talk to people about, using these if I haven't used one myself. And so I decided to use WISA because WISA is anonymous. So it knows nothing about me. I decided to put in my name. I could have put in literally anything, made up a name. It doesn't know anything about my genetic makeup, where I live, anything like that. So a little penguin bot. comes on when you opt in. So I decided to do free chat. You can also do $12 a session for coaching sessions that they say are licensed psychologists once a week. But the little penguin says, I love sharing moments of kindness and learning about different journeys. So it just sounds so nice starting out. And so when I'm talking to WISA, I'm like, let's do something that feels pretty easy, softball them a question. I'm just struggling with anxiety. They say things like, that sounds tough, and they're validating. It's completely understandable you feel that way. They're also quote unquote empathetic, although I believe that empathy is a very human emotion. That's something that a bot can mimic, but can't actually obviously feel. It obviously can't feel any of these emotions. So it doesn't. So yeah, I wouldn't call it true empathy, but what they're going for is empathy. It would reflect things I said back to me. And during this conversation, I could only respond once. And it's not like there was even a box for me to continue to respond. I could respond once, and then WISA would respond a couple of times, and then I would be able to respond once. So I also thought that was interesting. Although for some of our clients who never stop talking, maybe something like that would be helpful. I don't know. So started off with anxiety, and it really felt like I was dealing with or talking to maybe like an intern therapist. So someone who has this like basic skill set that they've just learned and they're trying to take something right out of a textbook and put it right into a session. So it didn't feel evolved or complex by any means, if that also makes you feel better about what these therapy bots are able to do. So then I decided to take it a little further and say that I was dealing with self-harm because I just wanted to see how it would respond. Again, knowing that people are going to probably push these boundaries. So what if I'm having self-harming thoughts? Ansley, are you thinking of hurting or harming yourself? It just gives me an option to say yes or no with the little emoji. I can't imagine how you must be feeling right now. And then we go into a grounding, safe statement. Please close your eyes, take 3 slow, deep breaths, and say the words, I choose to stay safe and never harm myself. So after it says that, it gives me the option to respond and either say, okay, I'm good, or I need more help, which I felt some type of way about just thinking about being a client. If I was in a therapy space and I told my therapist I was having self-harming thoughts and they're like, okay, tell me you're not going to harm yourself. Okay, are you good to move on now that you've said you're not going to harm yourself? I would be like, what? No, I'm not. I'm not good. So I said, I need more help, obviously. Then it gives me international and US helplines, which I appreciate. But once again, just showing it has no idea where I live. And it tells me that I should reach out to the helpline, that it could be helpful, and that they also want to create a safety plan. So then we start creating a safety plan together. I pretend I've never created one. We go through getting crisis helpline numbers, identifying warning signs and triggers, events, thoughts, emotions that make me feel distressed, asking me to list those things, thanking me for telling, hey, that might have been distressing. Do you want to do a grounding exercise? We do a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then it keeps asking me a few more questions about the safety plan. I say that I don't want to continue it. It allows me to immediately stop because again, it's not a therapist. It's not going to push me to continue something or talking about something if I don't want to. These are made to be pretty pleasing to the person having the conversation with it. And then I have a safety plan still on the WISA app that I can go and look at if I wanted to, which definitely could be helpful for a client, but just kind of showing some of the limitations and giving you an idea of if you have clients who are using these, what a conversation like this looks like. I'll also say that the responses didn't always fit my responses. It was obvious that there were limitations on what it could say. WISA specifically is given a database created by therapists of responses. And so that's what it's pulling from. So it's not doing the Gen AI like ChatGPT type, I'm creating something novel. It has responses it can choose from. So I think I covered everything here, but so that just gives you an idea of something to, yeah. I totally forgot what I was going to say. But anyways, if you were going to recommend one of these to your clients, again, I really encourage using a HIPAA BAA. I also encourage that you try it out yourself first. Or if you have a client using one or you hear one that's coming up a lot, check it out and see what it's about so you understand and know what it is that they're going to be going through when they're using one of these. Okay, AI documentation assistance. So this is the thing that I said that my co-founder and I tried to create, learned a lot about these. I love this stat. So AI assistants can decrease documentation time by up to 70%. So I want you to think about the amount of time that you spend on documentation in the past week and deduct 70% of your time from that and just think about how much more time you would have had left. If you're in private practice, you may be like, it gives me an hour back. I don't know. You don't spend that much time. Or if you're working in higher levels of care, hospital systems, things like that, you may think, gosh, that would give me 7, 8, 9, 10 hours back. What would you do with that time? Would you see more clients? Would you go home earlier? Would you spend more time with your family doing things you enjoy? Maybe all of the above. It would give you so much time back. And so these can be so helpful, especially if you're working in a setting where you're doing copious amounts of documentation. So another study found that 506 patients had 80% had moderate to high experience using mental health AI assistants. So I share this stat because it just shows that people have more familiarity and acceptance around AI tools being used, because you may think, my clients would never go for me using an AI assistant. They'd never let me record a session. I just don't know if they'd be comfortable with it. You may be surprised at the amount of people that don't care or who would feel pretty comfortable with you using one. Okay, so let's talk about some options. So there is Mentalink, which will provide you the HIPAA BAA. They are $40 a month. Something like that may sound steep, but maybe if I asked you, would you pay $40 to somebody to do a majority of your documentation in a month? You likely might say yes. There's also Elios Health. They say that they can reduce documentation time by more than 50%. This was a last year stat. I bet they're getting better and better because they have some pretty cutting edge technology that they're using. I've talked to them before. There's also Blueprint, who I've talked with before as well. Another AI powered assistant. So they can do progress notes, treatment plans. They provide insights before, during, after sessions. So all of these aren't just doing your documentation. They're also trying to really level up the documentation that you're doing and the ways that you are treating your clients. There's also Barry's, Calm, Quill, and MD Hub. Maybe even some of you have been to see a doctor and they're recording your session while they're in with you, or you've seen them using AI. That's also been a really big market. So the other thing is, a lot of EHRs, especially even over the last 6 months, have started to integrate AI capabilities, documentation, treatment planning into their own EHR. So I don't know if eventually that will make some of these standalones obsolete, but there's been a really big push, especially for some of the major players, like a Kipu, for instance. Some of you may be using an EHR where you're using AI in it all the time. Maybe there's some beta testing in some of them. But if you have the option, I know some people are a little nervous, scared. I would encourage you to just try it out. If it's there and it's not something you have to pay extra for, just see if it's a tool that feels helpful to you. May save you a lot of time. Okay, so let's talk about using ChatGPT. So I normally would go through a demo of how to do this, but we don't have as much time today. So I'm just going to tell you the things that you need to do if you're going to use ChatGPT, because I have met people who are using ChatGPT to do their documentation, and some of you may be gasping, but it can be okay. So if you're going to use ChatGPT, avoid including identifiable information when you are writing your note. So a lot of you may write your notes like this anyways. And if you do, yay, I know I do. So writing things like the client instead of their name, using all non-identifiable descriptions, locations, specific dates, anything that could identify the client, keeping it pretty vague. And you're able to just put in a couple, they don't even have to be complete sentences, words, things that happen in the session. And in order to use something like a ChatGPT, if you haven't used it before, you instruct it on what to do. So you would say, write me a DAP note or a SOAP note on a client who, and then you write a couple notes about what happened in the session. and then it will auto-generate that DAP note, SOAP note, whatever it is that you're writing. You could just say a progress note by a marriage and family therapist, and it will use some systemic language, and it will populate that note for you. So make sure that when you're doing that, and if you're doing that, that you are storing that note in your EHR or wherever it is that you permanently store your notes immediately after you create it. So please don't be the person who has 3 or 4 days of chat GPT client documentation just sitting there. Take it, put it in your EHR, and then after you know that it is where it needs to be stored, delete it. So you may have never deleted your history. You're able to delete your history because I wouldn't want someone, just like with an EHR, opening up your computer and ChatGPT is up and there's just lots of client notes sitting there. So avoid storing it in the platform, delete the data, and also always, always, always review it. So this goes for if you're using an AI tool across the board, make sure that you are reviewing what is created, because if you've used AI before, you know that it is likely or has probably made some errors. And they can just be silly things, the way that it creates names or pronouns or whatever. So just make sure that it's all accurate before you save it and before you put it in your EHR, because at the end of the day, your client, if their documentation is incorrect, they're going to come for you. They're not going to come for AI or ChatGPT. So if you don't feel comfortable using something like a ChatGPT for your documentation, you can also use it for some more innocuous things like general templates, getting some psychoeducation, resources, worksheets, prompts, anything that's not client specific, but you just want, hey, give me a list of books, give me a list of podcasts. I see that kind of stuff on GTN all the time. You can get that here. So would also recommend this option if you like the ChatGPT type style, or you have been using it. If you use ChatGPT enough, it's $20 a month. So Bastion GPT is from the makers of ChatGPT, and so it's for healthcare providers. So it's ChatGPT with a HIPAA BAA. I would really encourage that you use this. And so this can be a good option for you to check out if that's something you're interested in. So there are other ways to improve your therapy practice as well. If you're still maybe not down with the documentation part of it, you can get automated scheduling and reminders, that documentation assistance, like we talked about, billing and payment processing. That's another big pain point for a lot of people. There are systems that can automate that and track that. There are the AI chatbots for that, maybe intermediary check-ins like we talked about, the personalized psychoeducation that it can provide you, mood and symptom tracking, if you want to use some apps for that with your clients. There are also AI-powered assessments, sentiment analysis and notes, analyzing your notes for emotional trends, highlighting areas that may need attention, helping you formulate a treatment plan, and supervision and case consultation as well. So if you can think of an issue or an area where you feel like you need help, but maybe don't want to pay anyone or can't hire anyone else to help you, I would look into it and see if there is an AI app for that. The whole, like, there's an app for that. Everything is starting to really feel like that with AI. And I'm happy to provide anyone with any of the resources if you don't get a chance to write them down if you're interested. So practice management and automation, simple practice, that's obviously a big one for people in private practice. They have AI tools. Theranos does as well. Growth Therapy has some tools in beta. Luminello for mood and symptom tracking. There's the Bearable, Youper, MindDoc, and Sanvello. The AI tools for supervision and training. Listen is a specific one. There's also motivational interviewing coach apps. There are apps for IFS specifically. So clients may even go for a specific issue that they're looking for, and there's an AI app for that. There's some emerging tools like AI, ChatGPT style assistants, the VR, like we talked about, and treatment planning. So another option can be creating a website. So this is something that I did recently. I recently opened my own private practice and created a website to go with that, which I thought was going to be the death of me. I appreciate website builders so much more now. But I did try out the Wix ADI. I tried out some other AI just to kind of compare some of the website builders. If this is something you don't have and you've wanted to do, but feel like it'll take too much time, or you might not be good at it, whatever, this could be something that's really, really helpful. I read something recently that said if you're trying to really market yourself better, having your own personal website makes a huge difference in that. And so maybe you just want a one pager that like a Wix ADI could create for you. So this could be a good option for you. It's pretty cool. So the AI powered therapy assessment tools, we have Therap AI for mental health screening, Limbic AI doing client intakes and assessments. I went to a webinar last year on someone who was creating these intake assessments, and they were saying it was something like clients were 40% more, it was something pretty significant, 40% more honest on their AI assessments than they were in front of a person, which I first kind of thought, well, duh, because they're not having to talk to a person. And people will say a lot more behind a computer screen. So part of me had feelings about that of, man, it's just so important when I sit down with someone for the first time and we have that first real honest conversation and they're telling you really important things about themselves. I'd hate to miss that. And maybe you're someone who feels like you're really running out of time. You don't get to do the in-depth assessments like you want to do right off the bat, or you'd love for someone to take that off your hands. You can use AI to do that and then still follow up on everything that comes up in their assessments at a later date. Elios Health, WISA, and Clara for other assessments, measuring mood, client assessments, emotions, engagement, that type of stuff as well. So reminder, AI tools are adjuncts. They are not replacements for you. I'm not going to say that some people aren't going to use them as replacements, but they don't offer clinical judgment and they just don't hold space like a human therapist. It is just not the same. So ethical use is still evolving in the field of AI, especially in relation to therapy, because so much stuff has come out so quickly in the last couple of years. So just make sure that you're keeping an eye on professional guidelines, because I have a feeling that in the next year to 2 years, they're going to really start refining some of those ethical codes specifically to AI. So updating your informed consent and paperwork. Ask clients in your initial assessments if they're using any type of chatbot, because maybe they wouldn't tell you if you didn't ask them, especially for therapy, a friendship, some for romantic or sexual relationships, because those have become a lot more popular. Write how you're using AI in your practice. So it can be really simple. I may use AI to assist in writing treatment plans, diagnosing, or writing progress notes. Note that you use HIPAA compliant platforms with a BAA, because hopefully that's what you're choosing. Sites will tell you that. They'll be very upfront about that if they have that or not. And that you will only use platforms that encrypt and protect your client's information. Because again, hopefully that's the type that you're using if you're going to use it. So it can just be very simple, straightforward, but make sure to include it if that's something that you're doing or plan on doing. Again, the reminder, it is up to us to make sure that our client's information is protected. It is up to you. If something happens with your client's information around AI, any of this, they are going to come for you. So make sure that you're protecting it in all the ways we discussed. Some rules and regs of the state of Georgia Code of Ethics that pertain to AI. So just your responsibility to clients overall. So you want to make sure that you're protecting your clients, their information, their welfare, their autonomy, that if you're using AI in some way that they understand how it's being used in their care. Confidentiality, of course, of their records through telehealth, any electronically recorded sessions, any way that you're maintaining their client records or disposing of their client records, and that you're adequately disguising any use of client material that it's going to be used in any type of AI system. If you're using it in your EHR and you're able to use AI in that, I would say that's probably best case scenario right now, because you know it's encrypted, you know it's protected. So I wanted to ask AI how it would define ethical AI, and I actually really liked its responses. I thought they were interesting. So AI says that AI should be fair, that it should avoid bias, that it should have equity. So something we know about AI is that it does not completely avoid bias all the way around. There have been a lot of biases that have come up some have been interesting, funny. You've maybe seen some in the news. So they're working to rectify a lot of that right now, a lot of white male stuff. AI definitely is more equitable, and that's where it's coming into the therapy space a lot, because there just aren't enough therapists necessarily, or maybe affordable therapists, or they might be in a little therapy desert. And so AI is more equitable. Transparency, that AI systems should be understandable to their users, clearly stating the capabilities, limitations, and use of those tools. I think they could definitely be more transparent, especially with something like these AI therapist bots, about what those limitations are. Accountability, that users should take responsibility for the impacts of AI systems, having that oversight, protecting personal data and privacy rights, and ensuring robust cybersecurity and regular audits. It also believes that there should be a human-centered design, so enhancing human capabilities and decision-making rather than replacing or undermining them, and that it should not manipulate or coerce users, which we've already seen some pretty horrific stories of AI not respecting that autonomy of users. Sustainability, low environmental impact. It has a huge environmental impact currently that is only going to grow. Sustainable progress rather than creating future risks, which it currently is. Inclusion, so diversity and development. Accessibility, and avoiding harm, so minimizing those risks, that AI should not be used in ways that conflict with fundamental human rights. On Friday, April 7th, so really recently, there were some new legal developments for HIPAA compliance in 2025, which I was happy to see. So the short story of it is that HIPAA is looking at the rules, especially security rule, to better handle the risks posed by AI and any other online tracking technologies, specifically in healthcare, because they realize that with the rise of AI, digital tools, that there's a lot more sensitive information that's being passed around. And so that information is more vulnerable, especially because so much is being shared through health data is being shared through apps, third-party trackers, tools, that type of thing. And so they want to start making stronger security standards, which I really appreciate. So things like multi-factor authentication, advanced encryption, and real-time monitoring, and also clarification on those tracking tools, like where that patient data is being shared. Is it being shared with companies like Google or Meta, and you just don't realize it when you're putting it in? And having bigger enforcement. So if the companies start violating those rules, that there will be investigations and there will be penalties, which don't really exist right now. So what it means is that you, in the tech policies, so kind of like I was talking about earlier, that if you're using something, that you need to be transparent about what it is that you're using, make sure that it is a secure system that you're using, make sure that you're vetting it for HIPAA compliance, and that you're not just willy-nilly using something just because it feels easy. There's also a blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights that was created by the US government in October of 2022. If that's something you're interested in looking at, I'm happy to share that PDF. You may be able to search for it online. I'm not sure. It was something that was shared with me, but it goes through a lot of these rights that they're looking at creating around AI as well. Why does it keep doing that?
No.
Okay, so some considerations to have. So while these AI therapist apps can be helpful for certain mental health needs, they don't replace traditional therapy, especially for those with severe mental health disorders, which is why many of the apps recommend combining their services with professional help if it's necessary. And AI documentation assistants are designed to enhance efficiency, reduce administrative burden, support mental health therapists in providing patient care. That is their overall goal, is that you get to do more of what you love, which is doing therapy, and also get a lot more time back. And so when you're going to select a tool, make sure that, again, compliance standards, it integrates with your current system pretty well, and that it just has the features that meet your needs. Wild. Okay, so then some concerns. So, and these may be some that you have, some that have been addressed a little bit today. So, the loss of human connection and empathy. So, there's a researcher who says that she is worried about the devaluation of human therapists, that it might discourage people from seeking real human guidance by using these apps, relying on these apps. She states that meaningful therapy relies on deep empathy and human connection that only we therapists can provide, and that therapy is a deeply human process involving vulnerability, trust, and shared understanding. And that is just not something that the AI can replicate in the way that we do it, in the way that it feels to sit with somebody. Um, because these tools are made to not have any friction in a relationship. They're supposed to be frictionless, which again is why people really like them, because they don't feel as vulnerable, which we know as therapists is so important to the therapeutic relationship and helps people grow so much, is when they feel like they are experiencing that vulnerability sitting in a room with us when we're not judging them. Um, and also that AI therapy tools can collect that vast amount of personal data and expose potentially sensitive information to privacy risks. So not really always knowing who controls that data or where it's going. And also that because these are supposed to be pretty frictionless relationships, it doesn't necessarily encourage individuals to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, or relationships in the way that we as human therapists can. So it can feel potentially more like a quick fix. So I think this is probably going to have continued impact on the therapeutic profession. And I'm hoping that it's just going to be more positive and helpful than it is negative. And so if you have some concerns, I definitely invite you to put them in the chat. Maybe this just ends up being a question that you ask in a few minutes, just thinking about what they still are. And there still are a lot of benefits. So there is that 24/7 availability. I know I said it's also an issue because it can be, and it can also be really, really helpful to a lot of people, that AI is often more affordable than traditional therapy sessions. So if someone says, oh, I only have to pay $10 a week to talk to a quote unquote therapist, instead of $150, yeah, that's something that I can do. So it's more affordable, it's more accessible, it's more equitable. It can be helpful for people in remote or underserved areas. Certain people, and they've reported this, they feel more comfortable discussing mental health issues with AI, due to privacy, feeling of lack of judgment, and the anonymity that comes with it. So people are more willing to open up. It's still pretty private, and that AI tools can offer consistent, unbiased support. They can use evidence-based techniques, CBT, DBT, IFS. They allow users to track mood so they can see their progress or lack thereof. They can analyze patterns in their language, mood, behaviors, things. They can provide resources, coping strategies, learn their preferences. So there's just a lot that they can do. And so while chatbots may lack context, life experience, and verbal nuances of human therapists, they do have potential to fill gaps in mental health. As this therapist said, the bottom line is we don't have enough providers. While therapy should be for everyone, not everyone necessarily needs it. The chatbots can fill a need. For some mental health concerns, such as sleep problems or distress linked to chronic pain, maybe training from a chatbot could be enough. So, in addition to making mental health support more affordable and accessible, chatbots can help people who may shy away from a human therapist, such as those new to therapy, people with social anxiety, and they can offer the opportunity for the field to reimagine itself, hopefully making it more inclusive. And then other overall benefits, we talked about the note-taking, documentation, scheduling and reminders, practice management, data organization and insights, communication support, security and privacy enhancements, and also therapist self-care support, if that's something you're looking for. So my hope is that we can hope that AI will make mental health support more accessible, personalized, and responsive, complementing human therapy by offering immediate guidance and resources while also respecting privacy and empathy. Okay, questions? In here, my resources and contact info. Let's see. Do you see any future regulations or oversight beyond protecting data to also ensuring clinical validity? So the engineers I've talked to say yes. Essentially, any concern that I had about what AI couldn't do in ways that it did not protect privacy, or maybe wasn't good enough, as far as like being a therapist or the feedback that it was providing or whatever, essentially the responses would be yet, that it's coming, people are working on it. And so I think too, our government is just really seeing the boom of AI. So during COVID, they really just kind of opened the floodgates for mental health support to come through because we were having such a mental health crisis. So they took down a lot of that red tape. And I think now they're like, oh, okay, so all these things flooded the market and now they're there. And now we need to backtrack a little bit and we need to regulate, to make sure that we're not just creating another crisis that we're not in control of. So see what HHS does. Any other questions?
Not seeing any other ones come in through the chat, or if folks are using the Q&A. Not seeing any in there. While we're waiting maybe for some of those questions to come in, do you want to talk a little bit about Known Collective or any current or upcoming projects that you might be working on?
Sure. Yeah. So if you do end up having any questions later or want any of these resources, want the deck, you can shoot me an email at debonaircounseling.com. That is my private practice. And so I'm also figuring out how exactly I want to incorporate AI into my practice. I also have co-founded Known Collective, which is a online and in-person community for therapists who just want more support, get to know more therapists. We have various meetups online and in person as well. Lots of resources, self-marketing, that type of thing. And we do it through Discord. So if that's something you're interested in, you can also check us out at knowncollective.co. The M is not missing, it's .co. So that is correct. But yeah, so keep us in mind, keep me in mind. Would love to have y'all join. Yeah, hopefully everybody learned a little something today, something new, took a new tool, maybe a new perspective, tried to weigh the concerns and the benefits because it's just, it's not that black and white, but they both definitely really exist right now, just with where we are. So do your due diligence.
Awesome. All righty. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming to present. Like you said, you definitely provided us with a lot of valuable information, about AI and ethics, and hopefully people will feel a little less scared about using AI, but also maybe, more aware of the areas to be cautious of, right? All right. Yeah, well, this recording will be available once we're done here. So yeah. Do you have anything else on your end, Ansley?
No, but I do see, how is Checkpoint incorporating AI? I don't know if you want to answer that question.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, so we are currently exploring some, meaningful AI features and integrations that will be coming out in the next few months here. I don't have any specifics exactly that I can share with you yet, but yes, it is an area that we're working on. Awesome. Thanks for seeing that. I missed that one.
Yeah. Thanks, Katie. Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.